Yeah. Okay. So let's start the class. Yeah. So what happens now is I have this struct and I have these two member variables x and z. So as per our calculations, I gave x an address of 0, and then the first 4 bytes go to x, right? And then the fifth byte goes to z. So looking from this, by I mean just by looking at this, what I can say is I have given 5 bytes of memory to the structure. That means the size of the struct should be 5. But then when I print it out, I don't see a 5 as the output. I see a 8. Sorry, it was F0. See, I see an 8 as the output. Why? Because this is where the second rule comes into picture. The first rule is every data type should get an address that is divisible by its size. The second rule is the size of the struct should be divisible by the size of the biggest data type. What is the biggest data type here? The biggest data type is int, right? Because int is greater than character. And the size of an int is float. So what is the data? What is the size that we were getting that by just calculating this, by just counting these bytes, we were getting 5. But 5 is clearly not divisible by 4. So what is the closest value to 5 divisible by 4? 8. That's why the size of the node is, size of the struct is 8. Two rules: member variable alignment, and finally the size of the structure should be a multiple of the size of the biggest data type. These are the two rules using which you can calculate the size of a struct. Is it clear? Good. Now a simple doubt which I got asked in the morning class. Let's say I have this now. Now what would be the size of the struct? Tell me. Exactly. See what happened? Yeah, exactly. You are correct. All of you are correct. So this goes to 9, and then it has to start from 12 because it cannot start from 9 because 9 is not divisible by 8. Right? Okay, not 12. It cannot start from 12. What should it start with from? Tell me. This is the first 9 bytes which go to this, right? Which go to this, the first member. And then the second member starts at what? It starts at 16. It goes up to 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So zeros from 0 to 23, what is the size? It is 24 bytes. Right? Now, what is the size of the biggest data type here? Tell me. The size of the biggest data type is not this one. Don't think that the size is 9. The size of the biggest data type is this double. You don't have to look. If you have an array here inside the struct, you don't look at the size of the array as the size of the data type. You have to look at the size of the data type, not the size of the member variable. The biggest data type here is double. That's why your struct size should be divisible by 8. And 24 is divisible by 8. So the final size of this struct is 24. It's 24. So remember these two rules always: member variable alignment, and finally the structure size should be a multiple of the size of the biggest data type inside the structure. Okay. Shall we proceed, guys? This is done, right? Let's go to the next concept for today. So I will just ask you some questions here. So let's say you have declared an integer variable, and then what can you store in an integer variable? You can store the number 12, right, in an integer variable. But then I want you to store more than one type of data in this variable. I want you to store a float. I also want you to store a character. I also want you to store a string. Do you know of any way in which you can make this possible? Can this be possible? Tell me. Okay, sorry. I actually skipped one concept here. So before going to unions, sorry, I was trying to explain unions. Yeah, just erase the last 10 seconds. I have to explain to one more concept actually, which I forgot. So this is the concept of nested structures. So yes, that's what I spend most of the time actually in the morning class. Yeah. So you can have a structure inside a declared inside a structure. Here, structure Y is declared inside structure X. Now you can treat this entire thing as a member variable. So this is called nesting of structures. It's not necessary that you only have primitive data types inside a structure. You can also have derived data types as member variables of a structure. This is called nesting of structures. Now if I want to, how will you call a variable A? Exactly, I'll come to that. Now I want to go to this variable A. How can I go to this variable? That's what the question is. So let's first create a variable out of this structure. Let's call it strx, right? So I want to go to the variable A, I mean member variable A of this structure located inside X, the structure X. So if I say strx, I have to do a dot operator, obviously. So I have a problem here now, because I have not assigned any name to this structure yet. I have not, just like if you ignore these lines here, just look at this. If I would not have named this variable, right? If I would have just left it as an integer, would it have been possible for me to go and visit this location which stores an integer without a name? It's not possible, right? Because I have not created a member variable yet. I have just told that type of the member variable is int, but you have to name the member variable also, right? You have to declare a variable here. Shantanu, this will not work. So what Shantanu is saying is he wants to do x dot y dot a, but y has no physical significance, right? Tell me, yeah. So tell me one thing. So just let's not look here. So let me comment out these lines. So let's say if I have a struct x and I have some member variables inside. So in my main program, can I access, okay, sorry, let me have a member variable z. In my main program, can I access z somehow? Is it possible for me to access z? Yes, no, guys. I have a structure called x, struct x, and I want to access this variable z. Is it possible for me to access z? Why is it not possible? Because I have not declared the structure variable yet, right? I have just told my compiler key I will be creating a data type which will look like this. But we have not declared the variable yet. Na? We have to declare a variable here. We have to declare strx, and then only we can go to strx.z. Then only we can go into the member variable. Similarly, for nesting of structures, nested structures, if you have a structure here, right? If you have a structure y, but then I have not created any variable out of this structure yet, right? So how can I go inside? How can I access A without that variable name? I have to create a variable, right? So I have to create a variable called y here, which is of type struct x. Just like the way I have created a variable called num of type int, I have created a member variable called y of type struct y. Now, if I want to access A, all that I have to do is strx.y.a. Yeah, that's what, Rishabh, that's what we did, right? We wrote st struct ya in struct x. That's what we wrote, right? I didn't understand what you're trying to say here. We will write struct ya in struct x. Okay, fine. So for a struct, you have to give it a name,
I have
just
a
like
doubt.
you. Yeah, tell me.
What if you do struct y, you define struct y as int a, and then you declare a variable y? That's fine. But then after int num char ch, you declare struct y example, say. After, yeah. What if we want to access the variable a of example? Should we do struct x dot example dot a?
Yes, you have to say you are to access the a variable of example, right?
Yeah.
So what you have to do for that is you have to do something like, what is the member variable name example, right? This is what you have to do.
Yeah, okay, got it.
This will give you access to the member variables of strx, right? X, right? And then when you go to this, so this will give you access to example. And once you are inside example, this will give you access to A.
Yes, I got it, understood.
Yeah, that's a good question, Keshav. Can't we name, what he's asking is, can I do this now? Since I have created basically two structures here, right? One structure is for X and another for Y. So what is he asking is, can I do this? So what do you think? Will I be able to do this? I cannot do this because the definition of Y is hidden inside X. Y is not free, right? Y is inside X. So the definition of Y only makes sense inside X. So that's why when I do this, I get an error. See, it says there is no type called Y. Basically, the error means that. Because Y is defined inside a struct X. So only this makes sense inside. So that's why this made sense inside this one, inside struct X, because this was defined inside struct X. It's out of scope, yeah. The technical term is it's out of scope.
Sir, either we put y after the struct y, or we put struct y example, or I mean any one of those we have to do, sir.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. See,
Okay.
if you do this right, so here you have created two. Here you have created two variables. One variable, two variables of type struct y. One variable is called y var, and another variable is called example. Don't think that it is just creating one variable out of structure y. It is creating two variables. One variable is called y var of type struct y. Another variable is called example of type struct y. Now, if you don't name this, right, and then you just declare example here, that means you have just declared one variable of type struct y inside your struct x.
So can we declare a variable in the definition itself, like the struct capital Y space the variable?
Here, you mean?
No, in the second line, like struct Y.
Here.
Okay. Yeah.
Here.
Struct capital Y.
You want to do this.
No, so the next line, struct capital Y is there, right? So there itself in the same line. Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Dude, this is the, I mean, you are violating the syntax of a structure then, right? What does the syntax of a structure tell you? You have to first declare the structure, right? And then only you can declare the variable, right? You are creating the variable even without declaring the structure. How is it possible?
Yes, sir.
Because this syntax here, this syntax, curly brace and then this semicolon, this syntax is used for declaring a structure. Only after you have declared a structure, then you can create variables out of that, right?
Okay, yes.
Yeah. These things will be confusing. I mean, it's not straightforward. So if you get it here, it's fine. And then try to at least go and read somewhere else in the book or online. Then these things will be permanently there in your head.
Sir, and in this case, like, how do
where is obviously not equal to example, because these are two different variables, man. This variable, right? This y var is of type struct y. See, there are two ways to create structure variables. I think I have explained to you before also. One way is to put the variables here. When you put the variables here, you are creating the variables along with the definition of the structure. You can create variables here as well, S1, S2, S3, S4. So here I have created 4 variables of type struct X. Another way to create variable is, by using the definition of structure later on and creating the variables. This is another way to create variables, the same variables, S1, S2, S3, right? So then these are the 2 ways to create variables. One way is to write the variables in between the space between the curly brace and the semicolon, and another way is to declare these variables later on using the struct definition. So what you are saying is, now I have used both the types of variable usage here. One type was here, which created this variable. Another type is here, which created this variable. So these are 2 different variables, y var of type struct y. Karthik, is it clear now?
Sir, can we directly access the S1, S2 in the main without defining them?
Can we directly access what? S1, S2, S3?
Yes.
Yes, you have defined it now. See, you have defined it already, right? You have already told your program that S1, S2, S3 is of type,
Struct X.
S1, S2, S3 is of type struct X. So you can go inside your main and happily you can just say S1 dot num. No one is stopping from it there, because you have already created a memory here for S1, S2, S3. These will be global variables in fact.
Sir, how do we find the size of the struct X in such a case? Like,
Exactly. How do you find? That's another very good question. So what do you do in this case is, first you have to work inwards. You have to first find the size of this struct, right? And then you have to follow the member variable, same thing. Thus member variable alignments, the first rule. Second rule is, if let's say the size of the struct that you have inside, if the size of this struct is the biggest size of your member variables, that means your outer struct, the size of the outer struct has to be divisible by the size of this inner struct. Is it clear?
yes, sir.
Yeah, so I would ask sir to give this maybe question in the exam, because because you can get very nice questions out of it, right? You have a nesting of structures and then you have to find out the size of the struct. Yeah, you figure it out. I mean, I don't know what it is, but yeah, let's see. What you are saying, Keshav, it's 16, right? So let's see. Are you including both the structs, variable struct y, or just one? Keshav, both. Okay, let us see if Keshav is right. Yes, Keshav, you're right. Good. Full marks for that. No, you cannot do Shantanu size of y, because again, y is not visible, right? Y is not visible. It is out of scope. So it will simply
No, I meant like if the scope allows for it, can you like size of a structure?
How is size of struct y different from struct x? It's the same thing, right? So you can obviously do it.
Okay.
You understand it, right? All that I have replaced is x with y. That's it. Why can't you do it? If the scope allows, you can obviously do it. Okay, so yeah, so using nested structures, you can create very complicated, abstractions, and very big software programs generally use nested structures. Okay, so this concept is clear, right? So how is it 16? Oh, I have to go to the entire drill again. Nitin, tell me, what is the size of struct y now? What is the size of this struct? You have to respond. I will not do the hard work. Tell me, what is the size of this struct? This struct. If I start it from 0. It will go from 1, 2, right? Integer is of what? 4 bytes. And then what? This will go from what? Keshav, you help me out here. It should go from 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And then this will go from 8. And then yeah. So what is the, yeah, so this, okay. So the size of this struct is what? Tell me. The size of this structure is 4, right? Yeah, so since the size of this structure is 4, so can this variable start at address 9? You tell me that. It cannot start at 9. So at what should it start at? It has to be
12.
divisible by 4, right? 12, yeah. 12, 13, 14, 15. Good. So how many bytes have we counted from 0? We have counted 0 to 15, that is 16 bytes. Now, what is the size of the biggest data type here? I mean, it happened to be, I mean, even 4, right? Because even the size of this struct is also 4. So 16 is divisible by 4. That means the size of the struct is 16. It is clear, Nitin? Good. Very good. Okay, so yeah, so nested structures is clear, right? Okay, let me, yeah, that's fine then. Let's move on. Yeah, you don't, I mean, in smaller programs, you don't use this concept of nested structures, but then I'm just giving it to you for so that everything in structures is covered. So now let's go to our same problem that I was speaking about some time back. What is it that I wanted from the program is I have a variable, integer variable, and I want that variable to store 3 different types of data. Not 3 exactly, let's make it 4 different types of data. So is it possible in any construct, tell me, using the constructs that you have learned up till now? Is it possible that I can store different types of data in the same memory location? Because the memory location here is variable, right? VAR. And I'm trying to, in the same memory location, I am trying to store N12 float, character, a string, and integer.
That just updates, sir.
Sorry?
That just updates the value of variable, sir.
It updates, but is this allowed in C? This is not allowed, right? Because the right-hand side always has to match whatever the data is there, whatever the type of the variable is there on the left-hand side, right? If I store 12.5, will 12.5 be stored? No, right? What will be stored? 12, right? I mean, I cannot store 12.5 correctly because the left-hand side is an integer. So I cannot store 12.5. Similarly, character is fine. I mean, character and integer are same, so I can store character. But then again, even this string is not allowed, right? If I want to store this string into this variable, is it possible? No, I cannot store this string. So yeah, so can structures help me in this case? Can I use this struct? Tell me now.
Sir, in declaration struct dynamic variable underscore should come.
Okay, good. So at least you are not sleeping in the class.
Small v.
Do you guys feel like
Small v.
No, sir.
you guys feel like sleeping in the class?
No,
You see, in this online mode, we cannot see you, right? Whoever is teaching. I mean, I guess like people just put it on, I mean, their laptop on the side and they just take a good nap. and when the class is over, they just view the recordings later on. You guys don't do this, right? Because I mean, this live interaction is a different thing than just viewing the recordings.
Sir, in the struct dynamic variable is v small.
Sorry?
In the starting of the code, struct dynamic.
I'm extremely sorry. Apologize. Yeah, good. Fine. I mean, I always make this kind of typos. See, whatever I was trying to get from the program, I got it. Semantically, I got it. I have a single variable, right? Sorry, I did a mistake here. I have to create a variable, right? First, let's call it D. Do you see where my mistake was? I didn't even create a variable. That's was a mistake. I just used the struct name. Yes. So whatever I wanted from my program, this is a perfectly valid solution for that. Why? Because I wanted a single variable, right? And D is a single variable of type struct. And then it can store these different types, right? Different types of data. It can store an int, it can store a float, it can store a character, it can store a string.
So what happens if you didn't use the thing int underscore, float underscore, and just using var?
Sorry?
What happens if we didn't use the int underscore and float underscore, those things, and just kept it as var?
Oh, you mean to say this? Remember what I told you in the last class, you cannot have member variables with the same name, right? Then what would happen? You would have two member variables with the same name, right? This is not allowed. Because how can you differentiate between both if you just use var? Because both of them have the same name but different types. This is wrong. Your compiler won't allow it. You get it, right? What I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Yeah, good. So this is a valid solution wherein I have a single variable of type of a derived variable of type struct, and then I have stored four different values in the same variable. C. I have stored integer 12, 12.5, then a character, and then string. But then is it true? Is this what I actually wanted? Tell me. I mean, no one can deny it, right? It's correct, because what did I ask you? I asked for a single variable and I wanted to store different values into the variable. Single variable is there and different values are also there because I am able to store these different values, right, into the same variable. But is this correct? Have I cheated or have I not cheated? Yes, no, guys. Yes, no. Correct. Not a bit. Yeah, I have cheated. Why have I cheated is because by the look of it, I agree that it's a single struct variable, but inside the struct variable, there's nothing fancy, right? It's the same four different variables are there, right? It's like four different memory locations. So it's similar to writing a program with four different variables called int var, float var, char var, and string var. The only special thing about this is these four memory locations are hidden inside a structure, that's all. But I am not using the same memory location to store different values inside it, right? I am storing four different memory locations to store four different values. C always allowed this, right? What did I do fancy? The only thing I did a fancy thing was I just wrapped these four values, four memory locations inside a struct. That's all. But this is not what I want. What I want is a single memory location wherein I can store an integer, a float, a character, or a character pointer. So this is where the concept of union comes into picture. So what is a union now? Union is simply it's one it's a union. That the structs and unions comes together. So this is what a union is a keyword. Yeah. So I will now explain to you what is a union. Sorry. Let me keep the example a bit simple. So let me just declare it as an integer and float. I will come to this later now. So let me first draw how the memory locations of how the memory arrangement of a union looks like. Okay, I have to use the board here now. Okay, first now tell me. Okay, so what is the biggest data type here? What is the size of the biggest data type? 4, right? 4, yeah. So let me just create. Now I am trying to create the memory for a union, which we have declared. So let me create 4 bytes now. This is byte 1. This is byte 2. This is byte 3. And this is byte 4. Done, 4 bytes. Right? The best, yeah, if it would have been a structure, how would it have looked? So yeah, so these 4 bytes are allocated to what? These 4 bytes so these 4 bytes are allocated to what memory so what variable? These 4 bytes are going to the variable named float var, right? So within that data type that we have created, these 4 bytes go to float var. Now instead, if it would not have been a union, let's say if it would have been a struct, then how would the memory layout would have looked like? The memory layout would have looked like something like this. So you would have 4 more bytes. So you would have 4 more bytes after this, and these 4 bytes would have stored the value int var. So this is what a structure is. 4 for float and 4 for int, because I have 2 member variables, right, of int and float. But unions are good, unions are cool. So what a union does is, it does not use this extra 4 bytes. What a union does is, the same 4 bytes that is used by a float are shared by the integer as well. That's it. The same 4 bytes will be shared by this integer variable. It's something like you have a room, and you have 2 persons in it. What the structure does is, it gives 1 room to each person. And what the union does is, it gives the same room to both the persons. So what is the downside of this? Tell me, of a union. And we know that in 1 room only 1 person can stay.
If we declare, like, let's say a float, and after that we declare an int, then the float value will be gone, right?
Sorry?
Like we declare a float like a union, and then in main we declare a value in like a float value, and after that we give it like an int value, then the float value will be gone.
That's one thing. That's good. That's one thing. But the biggest disadvantage is Keshav is right, both cannot stay in the room at the same time. So you can either store an int or a float. You cannot store both. For structure, that was not the case. For structures, you can store a float as well as an int, right? Because both of them have separate rooms to stay. For union, you just have a single room. So single room, you can have only 1 person staying. It will either be an integer person or a float person. So that is the disadvantage of a union. You can always store 1 type of data in a union. You cannot store more than 1. Let me prove this to you. So if I just declare this now, let me call it union now. Struct, you already know, we have covered at depth. So let's say union, and let's now declare same, nothing changes actually, only the struct changes to union, the name changes. Syntax wise, both of them are same. Now you create a variable of type union, let's say var. And then remember how you used to initialize structures, right? I'll come to Sriharsha, why do you need unions? How do you used to initialize structures? We just used to give it the member variables, right? Within this curly braces. So what do you have now? 12 and 12.5. So that means this worked for struct, right? This should work for unions. Let's see what happens. Let's see what is the error that we are getting. See, what is the error we are getting? Too many initializers for this. Okay. If I now just change the union to struct, see, this error will go away. See, no error. Why? Because 2 rooms, 2 persons. But for union, 1 room, 2 persons. So 2 persons cannot sit in 1 room. That's why the error was there for unions. Okay. So now what happens in this case is you cannot store 12 and 12.5 together. You either store 12 or 12.5. Right? So I will come to this now, that when you, so first the ground rule is you can only store one type of data in a union, only one. You cannot store more than one type of values in a union. It's just like a variable. It's like one area where you can store different types of value, but then only one value at a time. If you would have used a character, let's say ch, then also the same room would be shared by 3 members now. The same 4 bytes would be shared by 3 members. One for int member, the float member, and 1 byte, right? 1 byte will be used by the character here, because character does not need all the 4 bytes, right? So 1 byte will be used by character, and only one can stay at a time. It's not that, don't think that if the character is stay, so can the integer and float also stay? No, because integer and float needs 4 bytes, right? But there are only 3 bytes left. So only, so let's say this is for character. So to make it clear, excuse my drawing because I don't have a stylus to write. Yeah, so this byte here, right? This byte is for character. So you see, right, how the same 4 bytes are used by 3 different types of variables. If there is a double int and car, then tell me what should be the size of the room. Exactly. The size of the room should be the size of the biggest person, right, staying in the room. That's quite obvious, isn't it? Now, now if you try to print the size of this union, let's see what you get. What should you get? Tell me, guys. 4, right? See, you get 4. As simple as that. So can we store 8 characters at the same time in a union which is double? That's a very good question. So so what Sriharsha is asking is, can we store 8 characters at a time in a union which has double and 1 char? Exactly. He is asking a very good question. So what he's asking is, now the union has 2 data types. Right? What is the size of the union? The size of the union is 8. Let me not use this. Now he wants to store 8 characters. So how would you do that? How would you do that? To store a value in a union, you have to use the member variables. There is no other way to store data actually. That is, to store a character, you have to say C. Beware. So now, Harsha, tell me, is it possible now to store more than 1 character? Because the way you have defined your dynamic var, union, you cannot store more than 1 character, right? Because your member variable is of type character and double. So you cannot store more than 1 character here, because you can only store 1 character of type in CH, that's it. To store 8 characters, what you have to do, tell me? You have to just declare it as an array of 8.
Sir, we can do char star. Can we do that?
You want to do what?
So like
Exactly. That's a very good point. I will come to that now. That will be a bit complicated solution. But then you understand this, right? If you have a 8 character array here, then you can store 8 characters here. Character 0 equals to A, and then you can go all the way up to. Okay. So that's one way to do it. I will come to the other way in like after explaining what I was going to explain. But this is the way you can put 8 characters. What will be the size of the final thing? The final thing will still be 8 because the size of this and the size of double, they're both the same. If instead of 8 you would have said, let's say if you would have put it as, let's say 32, then the size would have been 32, not 8, because then the size of this would take place, right? Come into picture. Now the biggest person in the room is character CH, not double. Okay, good. I'll just show you one thing and then I'll come to the pointer part. Wait. Okay. So let me do this.
Sir,
Yes.
if the size of this character array was something like 25 and we also had a double, then will it be expanded like padded up till 32?
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, what do you want to do if you have a double here and then you have 25, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's do this then. Let's find out the size. Correct. It's padded. Why? Again, follow the same rule, man. What is the size of the biggest data type here? 8.
8.
Right? So the padding
Yes.
and packing, those things don't change for unions. They're the same. But then for unions, there is no member padding between member variables, right? Because only one area is created for unions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But the other rule also follows for union, wherein the size of the union has to be a multiple of the size of the biggest data type inside the union.
Sir, in the size of function, we can just write the variable name, right? Tvar.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to show you something actually here. The unions in more form. So let's say you have an integer num. Okay, and then you create this. Now, I have told you that you can only store one type of data, right, in a union. So let's say you stored a number 97. Where did the number 97 go? The number 97 went to the num, right? Now you stored the number 97. That means this memory location has the number 97, right? So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. These are the 4 memory locations of your union, right? And then okay, let me to spice it up. Let me put a float as well. Okay. So so this particular line here, it is similar to you opening up the room, you going inside and you putting something on the room. But then you have to here you are calling out the person that okay, the integer person should come up and pick up this data now. Right? Because the room has 3 things, right? Three members, an integer and a float and a character. Now you came inside and you told and you are trying to place something there. And then whom are you giving that data? You are giving it to num, right? You are saying dvar.num equals to 97. Now this memory area will contain 97, and 97 requires how many bytes of storage? That's the number. The first byte is enough, right, to store 97. That means I came inside the room and I stored 97 in the first byte. The other 3 bytes are empty or they contain garbage. Let's say they contain garbage. Right? So I have, during storage, I used the integer person to do the storage. But then when I'm reading it, let me read it from the characters, from the character side, from the character perspective. So now if I do this, dvar.ch, because I can do this, right? Because I am reading the same memory location. It just happens to have 3 different names. The 3 names for the same memory location are character ch, then num and fnum. So I wrote using one name, which is the num, but I'm reading using another name, which is ch, but I'm reading the same memory location. So what should I see? Tell me guys here. See, I see the character A. See, I see the character A. Why did I see the character A? Because I stored it as an integer, but then I read it as a character, right? So this is the using unions. You can actually do this conversion between data types just like that. Here I didn't use anything, right? I didn't use any casting. I didn't do anything. I just stored it as a number and integer and then read it as a character, because the union allows me to do that. It allows me to have 2-3 different names for the same memory area. Now, if I do it in the reverse way, if I do this now, if I do, let's say, character, and if I put it as an A, now if I try to read the number, now what will I get? Tell me guys. Now it's similar to something like this. I have used this character variable to do the storage, right? But I'm reading this entire integer part. What will I get? Will I get 97 or will I get garbage? Tell me.
97.
I will get garbage also, right? Because 97 is there only the first byte, right? But the integer variable will interpret all the 4 bytes, right? As a part of int.
So why didn't we get garbage the first time?
Because I have stored the integer variable, right? And integer variable, the value was 97 only, isn't it? So
but there are garbage values in the other 3 bytes as well, right?
Exactly, but I am reading it as a character now. So the character only will read the first byte, right? Because the character's area is only 1 byte.
Right.
Sir, but integer requires 4 bytes, right? So why will 97 be stored only in 1 byte? How can it be stored?
But 97 is a number, right? And 97 requires only 8 bits, right, to store. 97 is not a big number. 97 is a small number, right? Only one byte is enough to store this number.
Okay.
Sir, if we have a bigger number and it takes like 2 bytes and we read it using the char var, then only the first byte ka.
Exactly. Always read the first byte and then interpret that as a character.
Okay.
That's a good question here. It does not store zeros because, that's how it is. It remains uninitialized. It does not store 0 there. That's why when I read it as an integer, see what will I get? I will get some garbage value. See, I get some garbage. Because it does not zero out the other bytes which are no longer required.
Can we initialize the elements of this union to zeros or anything?
Let us see if we can do that. I don't think so. We can do an initialization inside here. I don't think so. Error. You cannot initialize structure variables inside structure. You can only initialize by putting values actually. That's the only way to initialize. Yeah. Fine. So this is how you can convert between data type. It's like store it in one name and read it using another name, and things will fall in place. So coming back to the pointer part now, that was a very interesting question that someone. But this concept is clear, right? Of unions, same memory location, different names. Structures, different memory locations, different names. Okay, so now let's do that thing which someone has just asked. So I have a double, and then I have a double value. Let's say, and I have a character. You wanted to use a character pointer, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Character pointer P. Okay, so what he wants to do now is he wants to visit all these. So there are 8. So this union has a total of 8 bytes, right? So that means if I go here, so this has 8 bytes. Wait. Yeah, this is the first floor and the second floor. Yeah. So now this structure has, this union has 8 bytes of data, and now we want to store 8 characters.
It's 1 o'clock.
We want to store 8 characters here. So the easiest way would be to declare the union as what? We want to declare the union as a double and then character array of 8. But then he doesn't want to do that. What he wants to do is he wants to use a character pointer to traverse all these bytes, right? Starting from the first byte. So is it possible, first of all? How would you do that? Tell me. First, what do you have to do first? Tell me. You have to first get hold of the address of the first byte, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Do you guys, you understand it, right? You have to first get the address of the first byte. So how do I do that? How do I get the address of the union? Tell me. This will give me the address, right? The end with the variable will give me the address, right? You agree on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then this address is not of a character type yet. Right? What is this address? This address is of type union, right? Union dynamic var. So I have to cast it to a character pointer. So now this union variable here gave me the pointer to the first byte. It gave me the pointer to the first byte here. This byte. So all that I have to do now is to put more data inside. All that I have to do is first, let's say I put the first value as, yeah, I told you this will get complicated. So A, and then I can do you understand what I'm trying to do? This is how you can traverse all the bytes. This will take some involvement. So let me just put it in chat. You can read this later on. So it's not that difficult, yeah. But let's not spend time here explaining this because I have to cover one more important topic. So why don't we use dvar for accessing the pointer in the union? This does not make any sense, man. If you use this, right? If you use dvar dot pointer p, it is syntax error. See, dot p will give you the pointer, right, address, and then you have to use the star outside of this. Not you cannot use like dot pointer here. This whole thing will give you the address, dvar dot p, and then you have to use the star outside this.
Sir?
Yes.
Instead of this, like in one of the previous examples, when you initialized this p with string name, we can use that also, no, sir? Instead of using pointer for each of the character.
You can use strings. You want to use strings here, is it?
Yes, sir. Because this is also like a string only. No, we are
Good. Very good. You have, yeah. Let's just see if it's correct. I don't know if it is correct or not. Yeah, it's correct. Cool. Good. This is syntactically correct. So you can visit all the bytes of the union using this syntax. What you want to do is you want to do this, right? Yeah, that's perfectly valid. Now P will point to hello world. But the thing here is P is a pointer. Remember that P is a pointer to a memory location. So this will give you just the memory location. This memory location is not the same as this memory location. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir. But in one of the structures, when you wrote CAVL and those 4 variables, no, sir, int, float, character, and string. When
Correct.
you wrote your, then you use the dereference operator along with char for an array. So the same thing can be used here, no, sir. Instead of using like a pointer for each of the characters of, you know, A, B, C, D, all these strings. I mean, elements of the string, we can just define some sort of string here and use that star operator.
I don't think so, man. You cannot do that. You cannot see.
But when you printed, we got the output, no, sir, using percentages in struct.
What are you trying to say? You're trying to say I use this, right? Character pointer. This one, right?
Yes, sir. Some sort of ways.
And then what I did was I did this. And I did this, right? You mean to say this, right?
Yes, sir. So can we use the same thing in this union also? Depending upon our convenience, we can use, no, sir.
Yes, you can use that. You can perfectly use that. But the point that I'm trying to make here is, what you might be thinking is, I'll tell you what you are thinking and why you are wrong. See, when you do this here, right? So let's remove the pointers here. See, when you do this, right? When you do this, where do you think is hello world getting stored? Tell me.
Sir, in that first H address.
First 8 bytes, you mean?
No, that's not what I meant. Because hello world can't be stored in those 8 bytes.
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to say. This value is stored somewhere else. This value is not going to be stored in these 8 bytes. These 8 bytes that I have listed here. This is not going to be stored here. This is somewhere else. All that your pointer is doing is it's pointing to this location, right? Now, what is actually going in that storage area that I have of 8 bytes, right? So let's say the pointer's value. I mean, pointer is an address, right? And the address is a big number, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Right? So let's say the address value of the pointer is something like the address value is, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the address value where the hello world is located. Now this value 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the address, this value will be stored in this 8 bytes because this is a very big number, right? So you cannot store everything in a single byte. So this value will be splitted across 8 bytes and stored in the union. And what is this value? This value is the address of the hello world string.
Okay, sir.
You understand what I'm trying to say, right?
Yes, sir. Sir, but if we had used it as some sort of a pointer to an, a string, a pointer to a string, then we haven't specified the size of this union, no, sir. Because the string, only when we initialize it, will we get to know the size of union.
Yes. See, in this case, the size of the union is what? The size of the union is maximum of double or character pointer. What is the size of a character pointer? 4 bytes. What is the size of the double? 8 bytes. So that's why it's 8 bytes.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. See, another good way to think about it, if you have an 8 here, right? 8 instead of this. And now if you do this, character P equals to 8. Now, where will be hello world stored? Tell me.
In that string only. Parts.
No, now that is the case. Now this hello world, see, now I have declared an array of 8 values, right? Now this is no longer a pointer, it's an array.
Yes.
Now these 8 bytes would be like taking these values here, right? 8 bytes. 8 bytes of the character would be equal to 8 bytes of the double. Now the hello world will be stored here. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
There is a white space as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. White space will also be there. Yeah. Okay, enough of names then. Yeah, exactly. Only the memory location of H is getting stored. Correct. Okay.
Sir, and in case where in the previous case when we defined the pointer, in that case we also can't change the value, right? Like p of 2 equal to something.
No, you cannot, because again that same concept which I taught you in the strings class. Remember,
That's that cannot be changed. That
it
address.
cannot be changed, no? Because that is not in your modifiable area, right? It is in an unmodifiable area.
Sir, and like how is hello world stored in 8 bytes? Like
I just
like
explained to you, man, in the figure.
no, char variable has 1 byte, right? Usually, and it stores only one character. So like hello world has
Here I have declared an array of char variables, right? Array of 8 variables. So when I do this, here, right? When I do dvar.p, right?
yes, sir.
Equals to hello world. That means in this array p, this HELLO, this will be stored sequentially 1 byte at a time. So these bytes are being actually taken from this double, right? Which is also the same 8 bytes.
Yes, sir. But hello world has 10 or more characters, right?
This is wrong. I mean, obviously you cannot store this. You have to store 8 only.
Okay.
It should not be stored actually. I mean, the other things will just go away. You cannot fetch.
Okay.
I mean, maybe you'll get an error also. You don't know.
Sir, and the pointer variable, the size of pointer variable, you said 4, right? Char star size.
I think it's 4 bytes. Yeah. I mean, I think size of any pointer variable is 4 bytes. Just try to find it out.
Why is it?
Why is it? Because I mean, it stores an address, right? It stores an address.
Yes, sir.
Addresses are always the same. It's a big number, right? So how big a number it is, the numbers are always be the same, right? So every time you have a pointer, it will be the same size.
Okay.
Sir, in union, there is no point in declaring two variables of the same data type. Yeah, exactly. What is the point then? Exactly. There is no point. Now, what is the point of unions? The point of unions, let's say you have designed a database, student database, wherein you know that the student would have either one of this information. The student would either have a PAN number as an information or his roll number as an information, but never both, right? So if you declare a structure on these two, now you have two options here. Either you create a structure for this data or you create a union for this data. If you create a structure for this data, always one part of the structure will be empty, right? Half of it will always be empty. Because you know that the student will either be storing a PAN number or an integer, never both. So in such scenarios, you have to use a union because it will be a huge space saver. Assume you have 1 million student records, and then if you use structure, it will take some, let's say 1 GB. But then if you use union, it will take 500 MB only, right? Because it will be exactly half. Because you are using the same memory location to either store the PAN number or the roll number. Shantanu, we spent so much time in this. How is struct represented in memory? Struct is sequential, right? One thing at a time, and maybe some padding in between. Yeah, it is stored in the sequence in which the member variables are declared. Good. Any other questions, guys? You can chat again. I can read the chat now. Then I will show you a very cool example. I mean, cool use of structs and finish the class today. Anything else you want to know on unions now? You won't get confused right now with some tricky questions if it gets asked in the exam. You might be asked to calculate the size, or you might be asked to see what kind of error. Do you get any error if you are trying to store more than one value? See, I'll do this short thing. Wait. Int num f num. Is this true? Correct, guys. this this program. Is it correct? Will you see any errors? They may be included, I don't know. So whatever is covered till today, it will be included. I think so. So Asar is going to set the questions. So, which is, why do you think there is an error? It won't show an error. Why? Because you are not trying to store two values in the same line, right? You are trying to store two values in different lines. So the first time that 4 bytes will be taken by 12, and in the second line, the same 4 bytes will be overwritten by 12.5. That's all. It will be overwritten, yeah, exactly. It will be overwritten. But then there's not an issue. The issue is only when you do and try and do this. Remember which unions. You're trying to do this. That is, on the same line, you're trying to allocate two values when there is no space for two values. This is an error. These two lines are not an error. Okay, I think I've made myself clear. Okay, let's move on to the final part of today's lecture. So the internet broke down actually in the last lecture for the morning batch, and then it was like a 20-minute gap in between. So I had to rush through this section in the last 5 minutes for that batch. Hopefully I will get some time here. Okay, so let us use some structs now in some fancy way. Oh, I should not have deleted this one. Let me create a new program. Okay, so I want to store student names. That's it. What is the variable that I should declare? Tell me. Structure variable type. If you don't follow the program, just speak up. It's quite trivial now, right? I'm just reading your names from the chat. That's it. It is, sorry, your name is quite difficult to write, so I'm writing his name. Good. So what have I done here? Tell me, guys. Simple, basic thing, basic structs, right? What have I done? I have created 3 structs and I have populated 3 different names in 3 different structs. But now I want to create a very special arrangement using these 3 structs. What is the arrangement? The arrangement is something like this. See. So this is your first name. This is your second name. This is your third name, right? Okay. Okay. So at present, they are lying in 3 different structures. Right? 3 different structures. Yeah, it's a linked list. So I have to somehow link these 3 structures together. How do I link structures? I have to link structures by, I'll tell you how. If I define one more member variable in the node. Sorry, it should not be a name. I mean, both of them got the same name. Let me call it student. Student. I'm very bad with names. See, now I have created one more member variable inside the struct. So what will be this member variable link? This member variable, it stores the address of another struct. that means it stores the location of another struct. This is another member. Previously, I just had the name as a member variable, right? So now I have added one more member variable inside my struct that allows me to store the address of another struct. So what can I do with the address, guys? I can go to that location and read the whatever is stored in that area, right? That's what an address allows me to do in a C program. That's what a pointer allows me to do. So I have declared another member variable as a pointer that will store the address of another struct. I don't know what struct, but it will store this address of another struct. That means to this picture, whatever I added, I have added a pointer here. I have added a member variable, which is a pointer which can store someone else's address. Right? So this is my second thing. Yeah, this is my second picture. I have modified the structure by adding one more member variable that can store the address of another struct in memory. And that's why it has to be a pointer. Now, but still, these are independent struct. They are not linked in any ways now. As of now, they are not linked. How do I establish the link? I can establish the link only if I make this pointer point to this struct here. If I can make this pointer store the address of this struct, then I have linked this struct object with this struct. Let's call it, what was this? Let's call it S1 as per the program that I have written. Let's call it S2 and let's call it S3. If I make the member variable link store the address of S2, that means I have established a link between S1 and S2. Similarly, if I make the member variable link of S2 store the address of S3, then I have established a link between S2 and S3. Now tell me, what does this arrangement allow me to do? You can respond on the chat, guys. What does this arrangement help me with? No clues. Yeah, exactly, Keshav, you're right. This arrangement would, if I have hold of S1, I can go from S1 to S2, right, using this link. If I have a hold on S2, I can go from S3. I can go to S3 from S2. Right? So just by having a hold on a single variable, S1, I can visit all the other structures linked together. So this structure is called a linked list. Right? So by using these links, I have linked different objects in memory into one string. Into one, you could say one list. And I can hop from one. If I am here using this pointer, using the address stored here, I can go here. Again, when I am here using this address, I can go here. So how do I establish these links here in the program now? It's very, very simple. I just have to say S1 dot link equals to and S2. S2 dot link equals to and S3. And then finally S3 dot link. Since there is nothing following S3, so I can just ground it to null. I can just say, don't point to anything, just make it to null. So are these three lines clear, guys? Absolutely clear.
Sir, I didn't S1 and link both are variables of the data type struct student, right?
Yes.
Then what does it mean when we say S1 dot link?
Exactly. That's where I was also confused when I read link list for the first time. See, you don't understand what is S1 dot link, right?
Yes.
That's what is the confusing part here.
Yeah, like the previous ones, we have written S1 dot name, where name is the variable.
Name is the variable. Yeah, name is the member variable.
Yeah.
Correct. So let me not put this one. Let me put this. Oh, sorry. I can just comment here. What does this member variable mean? Tell me. In star Z, what does it mean?
It's a integer pointer.
Yes. So what does it mean?
Yeah.
What can it store? Tell me.
It will store integer addresses.
It can store integer address, right? So let's say I can have an integer. Let's say int x, right? In INX, and it's 12. So this s1 dot z, it can store an integer address, right?
Yes, yes.
Is it wrong? It's
No.
correct, right?
Yeah, it's correct.
You get it right. So this pointer variable, what did it allow me to do? It allowed me to store the address of an integer variable,
Yes, sir.
right? Now cut to this picture. What are you trying to do? We are not now this is the pointer here, right? So this is a point. This is pointing to a area in memory. Let's say this is the area in memory, right? And this area in memory is holding an integer, right? Why? Because it is an integer pointer, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
But now, do you want this? Do you want it to store the address of an integer pointer? We don't want it, right? We want to establish. We want to store the address of what kind of data in this pointer? We want to store the address of a structure variable, right? Not an integer variable.
Yes, sir.
ये समझ में आ रहा है? Is this clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Like this triangle represented an area of memory which is holding an integer. This square here is representing an area in memory which is holding a structure, right?
Yes, sir.
So I don't want my pointer to point to an integer. That is, I don't want my pointer to store the address of an integer memory. I want my pointer to store the address of a structure memory. Okay? So that's why the first change that you have to do is to convert it to a struct now. First change. Right?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Second change is what kind of struct is it? Because struct is, I mean, by definition, and struct does not mean anything, right? You have to give a type. What type of structure? What kind of
Pointer.
what type of structure's address do you want to store?
Like struct star p, like it's a pointer type variable.
It's a pointer type variable, but pointer to a struct variable, we agreed. But structure has to have a type name, right? Type name. So what is the type name of this struct? It's a type name of student.
Yeah, struct student.
Isn't it? So that means you have to have a struct student here.
Yes.
Because struct can be of many types, right? It can be of infinite type. So you have to say struct. That's why you have to use a struct student pointer here.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Is it absolutely clear? Yes, tell me.
Then we are using the like the data type student in the struct as well. Like we are using the same thing in its definition.
It's a recursive thing. Yeah, correct.
It's a recursive thing. Like that's what.
So let it be now. The compiler does not complain, right? It can be recursive.
Okay.
Because don't think that when I'm using this struct here, it does not mean that it does not mean I have not even defined student and I'm trying to use student. That's what your doubt is, right?
Yes, sir.
I have not even मैंने student को define अभी तक properly किया ही नहीं है, right? I have not even defined properly because I have not reached the semicolon yet. But
yes,
बीच में I am creating a struct of type student. How is it possible? It is possible because how the compiler will translate this is it will first go through the entire structure until it sees a semicolon. And then it will go to the pointer and see, okay, there is a pointer of this type. Okay, so recursion, don't worry about that. So it's fine. Just keep this picture in mind always. Similar to an integer pointer, struct pointer will point to a structure in memory. Since we want it to point to a structure in memory, that's why we have to define it as a structure pointer. Yes, tell me.
Sir,
yes.
Over here we're using struct student star link to declare a star pointer type variable, right?
Yes.
But instead, if we want to like create a random variable of the type struct student, so will it contain, if there are more data types under that struct student link, will it include those also?
Yes, it will include everything. It will
But then they haven't been declared by then, right?
That's what I told you. Don't think your compiler does not operate in this way. Your way of thinking. I have read whatever I have read till now. That falls in the definition of student. It's not like this. Your compiler will first read this entire thing until it sees a semicolon, right? And it will read it once more.
Okay.
And it will read it once more because I mean it's just like reading once or twice, right? No one has told the compiler that we can read your program only once. The compiler can do multiple passes over your program. So like once it goes through the entire structure until it sees a semicolon, it figures out, okay, these things are there in the structure. And then finally, again it goes through and sees, okay, there is a pointer of this type. Okay, fine.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so don't, yeah, I know it's a very basic doubt. I also got all these doubts when I saw linked list for the first time. But then don't think if there are integer and then if there is a float, these things will not be included in this. These things will not be included inside this box. Everything will be included. Okay.
So like in case of recursive functions, like if we keep the after the recurrence relation, if we keep anything, that will not be like that command will not be executed, right?
Don't you understand? Recursion is an execution flow. Recursion में होता क्या है? Recursion में you have a function and then you are executing line and then you see the same function and you start executing. But then is this an execution? Tell me. These statements here, are you executing something here?
No, we are just declaring the.
It's a declaration, right? That means
yes.
your compiler has to format some memory in this way. So it's not an execution, right? So that means there is no chance for the program counter to go here and there. It's just a declaration. Remember that. So there is, I mean, that's why recursion is allowed in declaration.
Okay.
I mean, recursion is not the correct word to use here, but then just remember this. I mean, it's not an execution flow. It's just a declaration.
Okay. Yes.
We are able to use it. So we are able to use a pointer of the same struct we are using it. Like we have used struct student pointer.
Yes.
Can we use struct student instead of a pointer? I think it won't work.
Why won't it work, man? Why won't it work? If you use a struct student here, instead of a link, if you use a student, let's say, if you use this.
Yes, sir.
So what will happen is
that struct link should have a character and a struct, and that struct should have a character and a struct, right? And it goes on.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. This is not an execution.
Sir, you are muted. We can't hear you.
Then you see the same line and then you mentioning.
Sir, you are muted.
Can you guys hear me? Yes, sir. Yeah, sorry, my network again got at the same time, and I mean with the morning class also the same thing happened. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is it recording? Yeah, it's recording. Good. Okay, so what I was trying to tell you is what he is asking is if I declare a student within a student, right? So haven't we done this here already in the nested structure that we did? Okay, it's gone now. See, when you do this, right, when you declare a student inside a student, let us see if it works first. It might be boasting, but might not work, right? So I think it should not be an issue. We are going into a lot of details, but then. Oh, okay, you're correct. Error filling as incomplete type student. It's your yeah. This is the new thing that I also discovered today. Do you understand what he was asking, guys? Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can
Yes,
hear you.
sir.
What you were asking was, let's not declare a pointer type. Pointer type, okay. We want to declare a student inside a student, right? So what happened in this case was, as we are going through the definitions of student, I think we saw a student again here, and then it became recursive because the definition of student has not ended yet. So this is a very, very involved discussion. Let's not, I am also not clear on this actually, how these definitions are mapped in a compiler. I don't even know that properly. So let's skip that part today. But as of now, just think of it as this pointer thing is allowed. But then if you have a structure of the same type within the structure, it's not allowed in C. But in other languages, it's allowed. Yeah, see, you say this link has an incomplete definition. See, that's what it says. It has an incomplete definition. But if I use a pointer, the pointer is fine because pointer
Can't hear you, sir.
have to say pointer is not an actual thing, right? I mean, so not sorry, pointer does not point to an actual derived data type. Pointer is just pointing to an address in memory. So you can have pointers, but you cannot have a structure within a structure.
So can you repeat, like your voice broke in between?
Yeah, so what I was trying to tell is this is allowed, but this is not allowed. The pointer is allowed because pointer is just storing an address in memory, and that address is of this type. That's fine. But then when I have a structure definition inside a structure, right, of the same type, as in this struct student contains a name and this thing, right? But then this is not yet complete up till here, right? If I try to define this, it's like I am defining myself using me only. So that's why it's got repetitive, right? It got recursive. It got, I mean, nonsensical. I'm trying to define myself using myself. Someone else has to define it for me, right? So it's like my thing. It's like the structure definition has a structure, has a member of the same structure.
Okay, yes, sir.
But pointers are allowed because pointers can store addresses. That's why pointers are allowed. Just to keep it simple, just think of it like this. And then using, so yeah, so what was the linked list that we were discussing? So now the linked list part is clear, right? How have we established the links here in these 3 lines below?
Sir, you didn't show the output of this linked list program.
Yeah, because I have not written any printfs, right? Let me write printfs now. So I want to print all the names, right? But then I don't want to use the variables S2 and S3. I just want to use the variable S1 and print all the names. How can I do that? So what do I do for the first name? Simple, S1.SName. What do I do for the second name? Tell me.
Star S1.link.
And then I have to use the arrow operator here because I am accessing the second structure through a pointer, right? So I have to use an arrow operator here. How do I get hold of the third name? Tell me. Is this clear? These 3 lines. See, this line here gave me S1's own local data. This part here gave me access to the address of S2, right? Because the address of S2 was stored in S1's link variable. And then since I am accessing S2 through a pointer, I have to use the name. I have to use the arrow operator to access its variables. Similarly, if I want to go to S3, what do I have to do? I first have to go to S2 using this S2's address. And then once I'm inside S2, I have to access S2's link using this part till this part here. And then finally now here till this point, I'm inside S3's address or S3's location. And that's why, that's when I access the variable name using the arrow operator to get to the final name. See, I get all the 3 names. So I did not use S2 or S3 at all. I just used S1 and got hold of all the names. Is this clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, very good. You guys understood it. But why am I doing all this? I mean, why am I taking the trouble of explaining these things to you guys? There is a concept of something called a dynamic memory. Dynamic memory will be covered in more details, I mean, in the next class, because today we covered structures and unions, so we didn't have much time there. I will just briefly explain what is a dynamic memory concept. See, now assume you want to store student records now, right, using structures. But then you don't know how many students you have to store data. What do you do then in that case? Tell me. The question is very simple. You want to store student data, but you don't know how many students worth of data you have to store. How do you store them? In this, use an array of structures, right? Just reply yes or no on the chat, and then I will know. Yeah, you use your array of structures. But then that array of structures, you would have to set a limit on that, right? What is the limit? You would imagine the biggest number possible, the number of students that can enter in a batch, let's say 1,000 students, not more than that. And that way you just declare the array. This is what we have been doing till now, right? You declared a big area of memory because you know, like, my memory would not, I mean, my requirement would not go beyond this. But then there is a very bad way of doing it. Why? Because you don't know. Let's say in this semester you just ended up with 5 students, right? And then you will be wasting 95 if you have an array of size 100 of student records, structured student records. Then you will be wasting 95 of those memory locations, right? And let's say and the student data is huge. Let's say it has a lot of fields, and then let's say one field is of 1 KB size. Then you will be wasting, in fact, a lot of memory in that case. So this memory is not dynamic. Why is it not dynamic? Because you can see the size of the memory, right? From your program text. As in, if I just do this 100, you can see, right? You can see you have an array of 100. Even before your compiler has compiled it, or even before your program has started executing or started running. This is called static memory. Why is it static? Because you can see even before compilation, how big a memory space are you going to create? And you always end up wasting some space maybe in static memory. Or for that matter, let's say I have declared it at 100, but then your student, now this batch is seeing a student strength of 200. Can you increase the size of the array dynamically? Is it possible? In C, it's not possible. Right? You have a problem right there. So this is where the concept of dynamic memory comes into picture. Dynamic memory allows you to create memory as your program is executing based on the requirement. This is what dynamic memory is. Based on the execution of a program, your memory is being created as your program is running. I will give you an example of a dynamic memory now. I will show you a program now. Just observe line by line. So same structure here. Instead of the name, I have a roll number, and then I have a so not to confuse you guys, let's keep it to student only. Same structure, guys. Just instead of name, I have a roll number, and then I have a pointer to a link. Pointer called link, which points to one more structure in memory. Right. So let's say you have this continuously running loop, while loop. It's an infinite loop. And every time what you do is, every time you take as input a roll number. I've already declared all these things. Yeah. You take as input a roll number. Right, and you assign it to a structure. Right. So now what I want you guys to do is, I want you to create this list Remember in this example, what we did was, in this example, we created this list, right? We created this list, but then we just created this list on 3 nodes. But then what if you need 1,000 nodes? You cannot just keep on repeating these lines, right? Again and again, these links. So what I want you in this program is, I want you to create structure nodes with every iteration of this while loop. Right? So that's why for every new, so as this loop is executing, like for every new data you enter, you put it in a new struct node. I think things are clear till this point at least, right? It's very simple. You have an infinite running while loop, then every time you take the new roll number and then you assign it to a new structure variable.
So then it is student, the name,
Sorry,
the structure.
Yeah, student, right? And if num equals to -1, then let's say you exit the program. So if you run this, oh sorry, it's F1. I have used node again here, sorry. You don't have to take an exit. Let's say you return from a program. That is, this is the end of the program. See, I said 12, 13, 14, 15. See, the moment I entered -1, right? So every time what is happening is, as I'm running my program, a new student record is getting created. See, a new student record is getting created. But is this of any use to tell? Is this of any use, guys? Tell me. Is there a way in which I could visit all the students that I have entered till now, all the roll numbers that I have entered till now? There is no way, right? So can we? It's overwriting. Yeah, it's overwriting. So what to do? It's not overwriting, Vitesh. It's not overwriting. It's creating a new structure every time, and then it is whatever number I entered from the keyboard. It is putting that number inside that structure. But then I have lost track of all the previous structures that were getting created in memory. So it's something like your memory is like this area where new structures are created with every iteration. But I don't have a handle on all the structures that got created. They are just simply dispersed, right? So how can I get a handle on all the structures? I just explained it to you in the last program. Either we can create an array or we can create a links, right? We can create a link between all the structures, link them together. Exactly. That's the keyword. Link them together. Link all the structures that got created in one after another. How do you link the structures? Tell me. We know that we have to use the link pointer to link the structures. But then how do you link the structures? For that, you need to have, now observe clearly. This is the last part, 5 more minutes and we are done. Let's say we have a pointer. Right? See, this pointer does not point to anything now. It's just like it's just like a dangling pointer. I mean, it's just pointing to nothing because I have made it to null. Right? This is clear? Yes? Good. In the very first iteration, when this thing runs, what will happen is if head equals to null, that means I am in the very first iteration and I have not made my pointer point to anything. Right? If the head is equal to null, then I made head point to the structure that just got created. Is this clear, guys? This statement, if I also have to go and eat lunch. Yes, sorry. exactly. Sorry. Yeah. Yes. So if head is equals to null, that means this is the first iteration of this loop, and I have just made the pointer point to the first structure that I have just created out of my memory. Right? Now let's go to the second iteration. In the second iteration, what would happen? In the second iteration, I would have created a new structure, right? Because here the new structure got created, which got a new memory address. And what is my head pointing to now in the second iteration? The head is pointing to the previous struct that I have created, right? In the first iteration. So it's exactly. So what I do is, all that I have to do is, for the second iteration, I have to say head dot link equals to end xx. Is this line clear? The else part. Good. The last part now. Now the first iteration is done. Head was pointing to the first. Second iteration, what did we do? We created a new structure, and the previous node to which the head was pointing to, which is the first structure, we made its link point to the new structure that got created. Right? The two iterations are over. Now come to the third iteration. In the third iteration, what do I need? Tell me. In the third iteration, I have to have a handle on the last node that got created in the second iteration. And then only I can make its pointer point to the new structure, right? Exactly. So that's why I have to move my head pointer always. I will come to that. Why it's not plus plus. I will come to that. But do you understand this line here, this line? If I don't make this line, head will always stay at the first node that we created, the first structure that we have created. But head has to always be on the last node that we have created, so that we can link up, we can create the links properly. If we did not move head one node at a time, then head would stay at the very first structure. But we have to keep on moving head to the last structure that we created in the previous iteration, so that when we create a new structure, we can create the link of the head to point to the new, to attach it to the new structure. Instead of last line, what do you mean by last line? This line. Dude, if you make head equals to null, then what will happen? We have put everything up for a toss, right? Then head is not pointing to anything. How would you link the in the third iteration, when a new node gets created, with whose link will you link this now? Using whose link? See, I will just give you a picture, and then I will go and then I will be done. See, let's use this struct figure only. See, this was where the head was, right? In the very first iteration, right? This was where the head was. And let's say these are your structures which are not there, right? This is your head, which is pointing to the first, right? So this is where head was here, right? In this condition here, in the first iteration, you made head point to the first. You made head point to the first thing that you got from memory. In the second iteration, you created one more xx, right? You created one more variable, structure variable from memory, and then you took it here, made it here. And then what did you do? You made head dot next. You made the link of head point to this, right? You made this. This is clear, right? These two steps are clear, right? What happens in the first 2 iterations? Yes, no, guys. These first 2 steps. Head was here at the beginning, then you created a new XX, and then you made in the else part, you made head.link point to this XX. Now let's come to the third iteration. Third iteration mein kya hone wala hai? You created one more XX, right? One more variable, and then you have to link it somehow. With what will you link it? Tell me. How will you link this XX to this, whatever, these 2 nodes? I mean, you have to link this X to this one, right? This one. Previous XX. But what is previous XX? Exactly. Aditya is right. Making head as XX. So that's why in the else part, after attaching this link, I also made head come here. Now head is pointing here. That's why in the third iteration, head will point here. Similarly, in the fourth iteration, I will get one more XX, right? And then I will bring it up, right? And then head has moved here now. After establishing the link, which is this line here, sorry, not null. Yeah, after establishing the link, then head will move to that position. See, after establishing the link, head will move here now. Right, and these will have some values. Now head is here, and again head dot next will be here. So every time you create a new node, you make head point to that, so that in the next iteration you can use the head to link the new node that is coming into your linked list. Okay.
Sir.
Exactly. I get it now. You are absolutely correct. Now at the end of the 4th, let's say it only runs for 4 iterations, right? Now abhi head kahan pe pahunch gaya? Head is at the very end, right? But then how am I going to access all these nodes? Because head to end tak pahunch chuka hai, right? Head has reached the very end. There is no way for me to come to visit all these things, right? One after another. Okay, so that's why we need a static pointer, not static pointer as in we need a pointer that does not move. Okay, so let's call that pointer let's call that pointer, what should I call it? STX. Let's call it STX. So you keep this pointer pointing to the very first XX. That's it. You don't move STX after that. What I'm trying to tell you here is you do this. Because at the end of the 4th iteration, head would have moved to the very end, right? There is no way for me to start from the very beginning again. So you have one more. So at the very first node that we have created, you have one more pointer here now. This STX pointer never moves. This STX pointer stays as it is. But this head is moving all the time to keep track of the last node that was inserted. So during your when you want to print out all the nodes, what you have to do is you just have to keep on doing STX link, STX link, STX link, and then you can visit all the nodes. I know I lost 90% of you in this discussion, but then it's a tricky discussion. Go and see this lecture again, then you will understand it maybe. I'll also do one thing. So I will just copy paste this code in the chat so that you can, this is not a complete code, you just go and write it yourself properly so that you can print it out. Now after this, we have created the link, we have created the linked list properly. So after this, you write one more loop maybe, wherein you visit all the nodes using the link pointer one after another. Karthik, why won't the head plus plus be used? Plus plus is only used when the locations of the memories are contiguous, right? But how are this memory being created? Okay, I will give you one more food for thought. Let's say I create 2 integer variable x and two variables int x and int y. Can you say int x and int y are together in your memory? Can you say the address of x and address of y are side by side? Karthik. if you have these two definitions, declarations, right, of two variables, x and y, and if you have a pointer to x, can you go to the pointer for y? Can you go to the address of y? Because you don't know from which memory location the address, the space for y will be created, right? So it's not necessary that x and y are contiguous in memory. It's not like let's say x starts at address 100, right? And then it goes up to 101, 102, and 103. You cannot say y will start at 104.
It's 2 o'clock.
Because y will be allocated any random whatever location is free in your memory, right? Because x and y are not in an array. That's why x and y are not going to be contiguous. So that's why you cannot do a plus plus here in the struct. Because every time whenever a new struct is created, it is created out of a new memory, and the previous memory might not be contiguous with the new memory. Won't the input entered in the previous structure be overwritten by a new input? Atharva, you are making a very, very, very silly mistake here, man. See, every time I am creating a new variable, man. See, if I do this int x, if I declare an integer inside this loop, does it mean that the same variable is getting updated? No, right? Every time a new variable is created, right, with the same name, that's fine. The name is same, but the address, the location of the variable is different, right? Yeah, Devesh is right. Whenever you declare variables inside loops, it does not mean, right, that the same variable, same location of that variable is getting updated. No, every time the name is the same, but then each name, and the same name gets assigned to different locations. But then you are already taking care of these links, right? By linking them up together, you have not lost all those memories that were created. You have linked them up together.
So like I have a basic doubt in the declaration. Like normally if we declare int x and in the next line again if we declare int x, it will be an error, right? In the normal main function.
Yeah, it will be an error because two lines cannot have the same declaration, right?
But the loop is also same now, sir. We are coming back and again declaring the same name variable.
Loop is an iteration. Loop is an iteration. Loop is not in the same. These two things are different, man. This is like int x and int x. This is a very, very basic doubt. Int x and int x. These are two lines in the same program, right?
Yes, sir.
This is not allowed. But then when you run a loop, when you do this, these are two executions, right? Two different executions. Because text-wise, you have only one line, but execution-wise, you have two lines.
Like I didn't understand. Like it is the same as the previous one, right?
Dude, how can I explain this to you? This is a very basic thing. See, what does a for loop do? The for loop does not mean that it expands your program's lines, right? Do you mean to say that if I have to write int x 100 times in my code, so if I write a for loop, my program will be, my new lines will be added to my program if I write a for loop? Is it that?
Like I just thought it would be the, like if you do I++ 100 times, like if you use a for loop, it is the same operation, right? Like
yes, it's an operation, right, which executes on the CPU, right? It is not like your program gets expanded. I mean, the text of a program is not expanding here, right? Here,
yes,
your program text is changing, int x, int x, int x. But here, if you have an int x inside a for loop, it's an execution which happens during runtime in your CPU.
Okay.
You understand this, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I think the system to which I was accessing, the power went off there. So yeah, I will not be able to access this program again. Yeah. Okay. Any other doubts, guys? No, the class is over today. It went very long actually.
Sir, so there won't be any excess after we leave the while loop, right?
No, there won't be any.
Okay, sir. Got it.
Yeah. I cannot type now because the system went off, the power went off. So yeah, so leave it. Okay then. Bye guys, see you.
Bye, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.